Hello YouTube, it is your boy B3, back with another kicking graphic novel review. Last time we did Invincible Compendium 2, and today we are doing Invincible Compendium 3 from Image Comics, the last of the three big compendiums. I want to read the Spawn compendiums at some point, but I will get to that. Let me read you the back of the book real quick. The best superhero comic book in the universe, and I actually completely agree with that. It's not an exaggeration. Invincible's journey is more harrowing than ever as he's betrayed by his allies, put face to face with his greatest enemies, and welcomes a new member to his family. He'll have to be stronger than ever before if he's going to save the universe, but not everyone will survive. Every single story for the past 15 years has been leading up to this stunning conclusion, and when it's over, Mark Grayson's story is over. From Image Comics, rated T14, Skybound collects issues 97 through 144 of the Eisner-nominated series. Best book ever. First up, I want to say there actually is something I forgot to mention for Invincible Volume 2. I am reading all three of these compendiums digitally on Kindle. I'm sorry, it was the most affordable way. This was a very long-running book, 144 issues plus several tie-ins, is nothing to scoff at. Plus, the physical compendiums fall apart very easily, I have heard, because they are too thick for their binding. And I just couldn't afford the physical books, and I didn't have the room for that much stuff. I would need to sell a lot more stuff before I bought that. That's kind of what I'm doing now. When I buy physical books, I sell some physical books. Because I still really want to support my local comic shop, as we all should, and any local bookstores. But this New York Times bestseller won't read itself, so I did what I had to do. Plus, the Kindle versions are less than a third of the price. Like, seriously, the physical ones are more than triple the price. And they fall apart? Yeah, right. So, Robert Kirkman, Ryan Ottley, and Corey Walker really gave it to us with this one. This is where Mark Grayson, Invincible's story, comes to an end. The comic ended. And I'm glad this was like kind of a creator-owned title. Because one, a corporately owned title, they would never have been allowed to do most of the stuff in this book, which is why it's so unique and amazing. And also in a corporately owned book, as long as people were reading it, they would keep printing it. And I think people would have kept reading it because it's the greatest comic ever written. Just had to say that. It is, there's integrity, his story ended, and that's that. Let's talk about the art real quick. Great art, really like it. It can go from very lighthearted, colorful comic booky to brutal so fast that you don't know what hit you. It's very incredible. I didn't talk about the book much last time because I had just finished this volume when I was reviewing last volume, and I was just so energetic, but now I've calmed down a bit. We get more story on Bulletproof, how his brother turned evil, how he got his powers, and how he ended up doing some very dark and horrible things. And then we got some commentary on the book, like some meta commentary, which was really funny. I really liked that. Invincible does get his powers back as well, which is pretty cool. Bulletproof continues to wear the Invincible costume. And Mark... Okay, so... Invincible goes to see Dinosaurus. And as I said in the last review at the end, Dinosaurus was planning something horrible because he didn't have Mark with him to give him a conscience. Because you know Dinosaurus is an eco-terrorist. A poison ivy type. But he cares about the balance of the entire world and not just plants. So Dinosaurus... I can't stop thinking of that old movie every time I say his name. Kills over 1 million people. He sets off some bombs in the ice caps and Antarctica and stuff, and the coasts all around the world flood. And Mark is responsible. He freed Dinosaurus and allowed him to do it. And Dinosaurus is as powerful as Invincible. Dinosaurus is as powerful as Invincible and much smarter. He fakes Invincible's death so that he can convince Invincible to work alongside him. It's very complicated, but it makes a lot of sense. And Invincible actually convinces Dinosaurus that he's been doing the wrong thing this whole time. Dinosaurus, it finally clicks for him why Mark wasn't willing to sacrifice people. And then Dinosaurus was like, you have to kill me. If you don't, I am going to do this again. I am going to be overrun with logic. I have no real emotions. The ones I do have been so diminished. It's pretty wild. But our big-brained boy, Invincible's... It kind of was his arch foe for a while. Angstrom, I believe, was his name. The big-brained, dimension-hopping guy. Shows up after everyone thinks Invincible's dead. And he just kind of starts going back to his life. Adam Eve becomes pregnant again. I was reading this book, and because that's of course something you reveal on the last page of an issue, I was like, Jesus, Mark, wear condoms, dude. Turns out he does. I think it's just that Viltrumite sperm, which is a quote from the book, oddly enough. But yeah, lots of the heroes kind of start turning against Invincible. Lots are on his side. Thrag tries to kill Nolan, aka Omni-Man, reveals to him his heritage, that he is king, or should be king, and because of his bloodline, the other Viltrumites hear this, and they go to Nolan's side and make him emperor, and they overthrow Thrag, because Nolan is emperor by birthright, for one thing. But also, all the Viltrumites have started living among humans, and they've been mating with them, and Earth did the same thing to them that it did to Nolan. It showed them what life can really be when you're, full of compassion and allow yourself to love another. It reforms them, and I didn't think it would. Eve uses her powers while pregnant to make an engagement ring. That's right, they get engaged. But it turns out using her powers uses a ton of calories, which takes nutrients from her baby, which means she could easily miscarry, kill it in the womb on accident if she uses her powers. Which is pretty awful. Very awful. Our big-brained boy, Angstrom, I think his name was. I really hope I'm getting his name right. I don't think I got it right last time either. Captures Eve. She won't use her powers against him because it could kill the baby. He sends Invincible to that alternate Earth where he sent Invincible before, but also the evil Invincibles he stranded there are still there. Mark kind of makes a truce with one of them, and they get back home. The evil Invincible takes Angstrom away after Angstrom reforms. Eve reformed Angstrom. She, made a lot of good, logical points that superheroes and supervillains often seem to overlook. This book has so many reformed villains. I love it. It's really wild. Robot, who's going by Rex now, and Monster Girl kind of get back together. They were in love for over 1,000 years after all. It is a truly triumphant love. We'll see where that goes. We will see where that goes. Thrag gets exiled. Robot actually becomes kind of the manager of all the superhero teams on Earth. He, becomes their dispatcher because he's a super genius and he can control drones with his mind and be with all the teams at once. A lot of stuff going on there. Cecil also exiles Nolan from Earth. I'm just realizing I read this entire compendium in one sitting. It just hit me. These books are 1,200 pages. Really, that's why the bindings don't hold up. They really just don't. They don't. And we're getting close to some touchy stuff. And what I'm about to tell you isn't what I'm talking about, but we'll get there. So, Monster Girl visits her son. And he tells her that before they left that dimension, Rex ordered the entire royal bloodline exterminated. And he wanted them to also kill the woman who had Monster Girl's child and the child. And it was true. It was true. And then we kind of get somewhere bad. So, another Viltrumite, remember the female Viltrumite that came to warn him in Volume 1, I think it was? She starts to take an interest in Invincible. It doesn't lead to a very good place, because she hates humans and does not want to breed with them. Invincible and Adam Eve get into a huge argument about Angstrom Levy. He wants to go after him and kill him in the dimension he was taken to, because he truly feels that he will never come back, that he couldn't possibly be reformed. Eve is sure he's reformed and doesn't think it's worth the risk. They go to that dimension. There's a whole Viltrumite empire there. They have Angstrom Levy hooked up to all these machines. They're torturing him. And Invincible was like, I came here to make sure he was dead. My fiancé was sure you killed him, but I didn't want to torture him. And then Robot sees how both Invincible and this alternate version of him are behaving, and he activates this sonic signal he has. It's inaudible, even to Viltrumites. They don't have super hearing. But they have... Viltrumites' weaknesses are their ears. They have very delicate equilibriums in their ears because they evolved for flight, right? So you can use a sonic signal for that. He kills the alternate Invincible. He kills Angstrom Levy so that Invincible can't get home. And then he strands Invincible in another dimension. Doesn't bring himself to kill Invincible because they did have some kind of friendship. And there was some logical thinking to it as well. Not terribly good logic, but still. Invincible finds the robot on that world. Takes the place of the evil Emperor version of himself. And he has that robot move into a clone body of Invincible, which is pretty cool. And so that he can take over and try to make that place a better place, turn that empire towards good, but also help him escape. And then we see, in last volume I explained how Monster Girl's powers work. When she transforms into her monster form, it gets a little stronger every time, but it draws energy from her body, which causes her to de-age, and eventually she will de-age into nothing while her monster form gets stronger and stronger and stronger. This book kind of shows the end result of that with a kaiju Monster Girl. She's just a baby, and she can turn into a kaiju. It is absolutely incredible. Mark returns home after being trapped in another dimension for 5 months. Eve is super pregnant and super pissed. She's like, I cannot do this. You did not have to leave this time. When you were gone for months fighting a war in space, I know you were injured, and I knew what you were doing. I knew it was something you had to do for the good of all. Defeating Angstrom, that was a personal grudge. You didn't have to do that. You abandoned me for 5 months. I thought you were dead. Robot said you were dead. She's not wearing her ring. She dumps him. And she says she doesn't want him in the kid's life. Then we get to the part of the book that made me have to stop reading for a little while. I had to put it down and just breathe for a bit. Because Invincible is raped by a Viltrumite woman. Theresa, I think is her name, something along those lines. Hard to remember the name of everybody. He is raped by her. It is a very difficult scene to get through. It is portrayed intentionally as horrific. It was awful. That I don't like that. That's one reason I never liked Game of Thrones. 'Cause I just can't watch a rape scene, and I really had to put my phone down for a bit. So know that that's in here. But I have to give Kirkman and them props on how they handled it. Rape is a very delicate subject. And he treats it like something real in this book. There was a time in comics where rape was very common. Mostly male on female rape, and it was very disgusting. Still is. And it was just kind of to be like, hey, look how dark our comics can be. Aren't these stories interesting now that they're dark? And everyone older than a middle schooler knows dark doesn't equal interesting. You know? Superman's not dark at all, and he's prevailed for decades. Throughout the rest of the book, this is handled realistically, and it really shows what victims of rape go through. Mark has serious trauma from this incident that he has to work through for the entire rest of the book. Till the end of the comic, the end of the whole run. It's portrayed scarily realistically. And it's a woman raping a man, and oftentimes in media that's portrayed as no big deal, and it disgusts me. Absolutely, it disgusts me. Like, my go-to example, because everyone knows of this instance, is when Talia al Ghul raped Batman. She raped him. People don't treat it like it was rape, but it was 100% rape. Talia al Ghul raped Batman. And it's played up as if Batman really doesn't care. And he even still has feelings, like basically the same feelings for Talia afterwards. And it's disgusting. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. As much as I love Morrison and the crew, and as much as I love DC and Batman and etc., that is a horrible way to handle that. It just is. But Invincible handled it in a way where I was like, hey, this is a story that legitimizes the trauma that male rape victims feel. And that is something that people need to understand. Men can be raped. There's this weird cultural stigma that says we can't, but we can. By other men and women. By any gender or sex. And it should be taken just as seriously as a man raping a woman, which also needs to be taken way more seriously in our society. I'm sorry that I went on this big spiel about that, but rape really triggers me. I'm not gonna lie. And I might have been hesitant to start reading Invincible at all, and I probably just wouldn't have read it at all if I knew that was in there. Because oftentimes if I know there's a rape scene, I'll just completely skip media. Just skip it. I stopped watching Game of Thrones way before everyone else because I could not handle it. But I had to do that. Mark and Cecil confront Robot about him trying to take over the world and stranding Invincible in another dimension. Robot immediately kills Cecil. Cecil, who has been there from the beginning. One of the biggest players in the superhuman community and the world of Invincible. And he is killed quickly and unceremoniously. This book can... I know I was just criticizing Game of Thrones, but this book can really red wedding you. They can Sean Bean your ass real quick. Robot rips Eve's leg off. She has to get a Vultramite robotic leg. And he takes over the planet, kills most of the superhumans, imprisons those that won't work with him, if he can imprison them. Everyone else, like, he was executing them straight up. And then he kind of imprisoned the rest. Really cleared the character roster. All his armors were like... And his drones were specifically made so that, like, if Invincible punched them, they'd let out this sonic tone from the armor that would damage his equilibrium. So the harder he punched them, like, it could make a sound that could kill him. Wow. Absolutely wow. He even takes Monster Girl and throws her into space to kill her. She does survive, luckily. A small resistance is formed, but they are captured. Eve gives birth. The baby's pretty healthy. Thank God. The Vulturemites create a truce with Rex Robot. Invincible is not done with it, and Invincible and Eve actually decide that they can't live on Earth with Robot ruling it. And the thing is, he's pulling the strings from behind the scenes. The people of Earth, they just notice things getting better, you know? Earth is on its way to being a utopia. Not that utopias... There's some evidence that suggests a utopia can't function. But still, we gotta do the best we can, right? So Invincible and Eve are just like, we can't live on Earth anymore. So they leave the planet, which was foreshadowed in Volume 2. A lot of... Volume 2 really caught up with us. Battle Beast fights Thrag, almost kills him. It's a battle that lasts for days, and Battle Beast is eventually vanquished by Thrag. And it's on the planet with the bug people. The ones that age really quickly. Not the ones from another dimension, the ones from another planet. The ones from the other dimension just have a time that works differently on their plane of existence. Here, it's just the creatures have short lifespans, like a mayfly. Not that short, but still. Weeks, maybe months to live. You know? And he is just fucking his way across the planet. They're all like, yes, Grand Emperor, we will have your babies, because he knows they'll grow up super fast, because Oliver did. So he knows that he can grow an army in no time. So he has that whole planet dedicated to just breeding. Insane. Just dedicated to breeding. It's really wild. They do start a bit of a resistance, but it doesn't go well. When they bust most of the heroes out of prison, the heroes see the Earth, and like half of them decide to join Robot, because they're like, wait, you're telling me the Earth is way better with Robot in charge? And they're like, damn, maybe it was worth it. You know? And let's face it, no real progress in our history has ever been made without bloodshed. Invincible deals with his trauma with Eve. Their daughter almost dies because of some food. She has to get used to certain foods on the planet and stuff, and etc. Plus the food that Oliver's girlfriend made for them was not cooked properly either. So it gave Mark like a horrible alien poo and nearly killed their daughter. So that there was some stuff to deal with there. Of course, Mark moved to the planet where the capital of the Coalition of Planets, starts working for Alan as a spy. But he's not doing any superheroing. He's not even doing any fighting. He's like, I want to be with my family. I'm going to do as little fighting as possible. He goes to help look for Thrag. But you just see, a lot of this book is just him being with his family. And it's very lighthearted and fun to see. And makes the horrible things that happen later even more impactful. But yeah, so he and Oliver end up going to try to fight Thrag. And a lot of crazy shit goes down. Oh, I want to mention Oliver's girlfriend is also this big bug lady because he's attracted to bugs because he's half bug. It's very interesting. Eve actually hates the alien planet for a while, but you just start to get used to it, you know. Very fun stuff. Invincible gets sucked into this portal where this kind of universal essence throws him back in time to issue 1. And instead of preserving the timeline, he uses all his knowledge of the future to try to stop tons of horrible things. And it works. It's working. And then after about 5 days or so, maybe a couple weeks, I'm not sure, the entity comes back to Mark Grayson and they're like, we knew it. We knew you. This was a test. This is an alternate timeline. You knew that you would likely not get together with Adam Eve if you didn't maintain your timeline. You knew that your daughter would likely not be born, but you saved these people anyways. And he was like, and the entity gave him a choice. But they were like, we know you'll make the right choice. You can either stay in this timeline and use it to help make a better universe and set the universe back on balance because you are the closest find. You are a pure-hearted being, the only one we've been able to find. Or you can go back to your timeline from before, where everything is off balance and the universe will likely be destroyed. And instead of choosing universal balance and saving the entire universe, he chooses the universe where his daughter is alive because he can't sacrifice her. And it was actually really sweet. And I was like, you know what? Most fathers would probably make that choice. Because it's impossible that he could have the same exact daughter again. It's absolutely impossible. Even turning his head a slightly different way would completely change everything. There was no way. There was just absolutely no way. And the entity was like, how dare you? You would choose your daughter over the universe? And he was like, 100%. He barely hesitated. Felt a little guilty about it when he got back. Thought he might be a bad person. When he gets back, he thinks he's been gone a couple weeks. He's been gone for years. His daughter is several years older, has never known her dad. Adam Eve was seeing someone else. Not when he arrived. They got back together immediately. But while he was gone, it was 5 years. She saw someone else. It was a short fling. She never fell in love with him, etc. It's actually implied that they didn't even have sex. Which was cool. Turns out she was dating the brother of Alan's girlfriend, and their species hates kids. Like, their species are adults in like 3 days. They have no patience for children. So basically her boyfriend was like, you need to get rid of your daughter. She's not necessary. It's her or me. And of course Eve chose her daughter over a guy she's only known for a short amount of time. Like, what the fuck did you expect, dude? Come the fuck on. Seriously? You gotta be kidding me. There's an interdimensional invasion on Earth that kind of makes Omni-Man and Rex robot friends. Alan gets heavily injured. Luckily, since he's a super cool mutant guy, he eventually heals and I think becomes even stronger. There's a lot of drama going on in this book, and we find out that when Mark was raped, she did indeed get pregnant. He has a son that he does not know about. Wild. We found out a lot of stuff about Rex. When the Earth was destroyed, pretty much by the interdimensional invasion, he had to come out from behind the scenes to try to fix the world. He did not run for president, but was elected by write-in vote, overwhelming majority, and he turned the position down. It keeps looking like he's doing the right thing, but he's really not. We get more fighting with Thrag. And it also appeared like Oliver was working with Thrag, like he'd started to side with the Empire, or this weird spin-off of the Empire. But that turned out to not be the case. He was simply undercover, but he did die saving Mark, Tara, which is the name of Mark's daughter, and Eve from an attack from Thrag and two of his children. And Invincible killed one of them. He was like, because Invincible is just straight up saying, I'm not a hero anymore. I will kill you to protect my family. No hesitation. Try me, bitch. And he'll do it. He will do it. It's wild. There's a lot of... That kid's going to have to deal with a lot of fucking trauma. Just from this one scene alone is several lifetimes worth of trauma. Invincible and Adam Eve almost die. All of them almost die. But it seems like... But Eve does that thing again, where when she's on the brink of death, her powers go into overdrive, allow her to fix biological matter, and she uses it to fix the injuries to herself, her daughter, and her husband. And she makes all three of them stronger. She, like, upgrades them. And, yeah, so it seems like just whenever she's on the brink of death, like she's been stabbed or something, that happens. And I think that actually gives her her natural leg back, which is also very interesting. Because she had a prosthetic, but it got ripped off in the fight, so she grew a natural leg back. Big funeral for Oliver. We find out that Alan manipulated Oliver into that situation because he needed to get Mark back into the fight and give him more personal reasons to go after Thrag. And he admits that to Oliver. Oliver and Eve finally get married. And it wasn't even played up. The marriage stuff was only a couple pages. Usually when people get married in comic books, it's like, there's a big build-up and lots of tie-ins, and, ooh, there's a big, grand wedding issue with 10 different covers. But then also, the wedding doesn't fucking happen, Tom King! But yeah, this wedding was just like, yeah, they got married, okay, let's move on. Honeymoon is fighting an interstellar war. But, Nolan, Omni-Man, is hesitant to get the Vulturemites involved in this war with Thrag, but he knows he has to, especially since he's the one that just let Thrag go. The fighting is pretty cool, pretty wild. But the final fight at Earth's sun. Invincible versus Thrag on the surface of the sun was an incredible comic book fight with one of the best comic book inner monologues I have ever seen in my life. Amazing. Mark got out of it by the skin of his queef. And Nolan dies. He gets killed by Thrag. And there is like a heartwarming last words in the hospital bed scene. And Invincible becomes the leader of the Vulturemites. But also, when all the other Vulturemites left Earth and flew off to fight in this war, Robot abducted all their loved ones and offspring. Yes! Thrag is not the big bad of the end of Invincible like we all thought he would be. It was Robot! Robot's the big bad! He's the BBEG, the final boss! And they have to take him out. They just do, to save all those children and stuff. Abducting children and manipulating. And you see, the thing is, Robot, Rex, Rudy, whatever you want to call him, he has the same problem that Dinosaurus had. He's so smart that he often doesn't consider the emotional impact of what he is doing. He just thinks of the logical things, and that logic would lead him to do something ethically horrible. And it did. Multiple times. So Invincible put a fist through his chest. But they keep his brain alive in a tube. It says what the logical thing is to do, and then the Immortal, who Invincible is leaving the Earth to. Remember the time travel plot in Invincible Compendium 2? Yes, we're going back to that. Woof. Yeah, so he leaves the Immortal in charge, and the Immortal has seen all humanity has to offer. The best, the worst, all of it. He's been around for all of it. And so the robot's brain is going to tell him the logical thing to do, and he is going to apply the emotions to it in order to really help the human race. Mark's son, his powers start developing after his mother is killed, saving Adam Eve. And Nolan, she only saved Nolan for a little bit, but got him to the ship so he could have his last words with Mark and etc., at least. Invincible's rapist dies. Good. They tried to redeem her, but I think the author knew, I think Kirkman knew there's no redemption for rape. There's just not. She dies, leaving Mark's son without a mother to tell him about their people. So he has to do it. He tells him he's his father. Mark's mother decides to live on Earth now, because without their father around, she has no reason to stay with Volturi stuff, the word I've been saying this whole time. And all of them leave the planet. All the Voltrumites leave the planet with their parents, you know, wives, husbands. They all leave the planet to go live with Mark. And they're going to become peacekeepers who try to make the universe the best possible place. They're the most powerful species in the universe, and they're going to use that power to help people now. A whole race of supermen. Pretty wild. But two of them are staying. Mark's son, and also that woman, Tressa, was that her name? I can't remember. Also her, Teresa, something like that. Also her daughter, who's not related to Mark at all. She had him with a human man. They're staying on Earth. He's like, I'm not taking him. No. And so they're kind of going to become heroes. Actually, his son becomes the new Invincible on Earth. And his daughter eventually grows up to wear an Invincible-esque costume and fly around. But she doesn't do any fighting. She, like, maintains environmental controls that they set up and stuff. And she does more humanitarian stuff like that. And we see lots of new enemies appear. Like, the son of Angstrom from another dimension appears. And a new battle beast is made because a prophecy told of another, which was set up a while back. To be completely honest, we get to see different phases of Terra's life. You know, we get to see Mark. There's another war with the Voltrumites. It's kind of started by the Coalition of Planets, because what the Voltrumites are doing makes the Coalition of Planets kind of obsolete. They're not needed anymore because they basically exist to fight the Voltrumites, and the Voltrumites are the good guys now, but they still fight the Voltrumites. And then at the end of the war, Alan's like, you were right. The universe is better now. We don't need the Coalition of Planets. We don't. Eve eventually dies of old age, with her daughter and husband who barely age at all and will live thousands of years by her side. But as she's dying of old age, her body does the thing again, and it makes her into her prime. And she's like, holy shit, that power makes me immortal! Eve is immortal as long as she's not killed too quickly, which is very interesting. So she can live even longer than a Voltrumite, hypothetically. Even longer. Which is really great, because I was wondering what would happen. Mark has a big fight with his son, who's the new Invincible, and his son lays out all this really realistic stuff. You get this wonderful scene where these warlike people are so moved by Mark's ways. And I don't know if he says it in the TV show. I haven't watched the TV show. At the time of recording this, season 1 is done. I think issues 11 and 12 were kind of the finale, which are some of the best comic book issues I've ever had that had more impact on me than maybe any comic I've ever read. They were so good. But in that, Nolan, Omni-Man, asks Mark, when he's invincible, what will you have after 500 years? Trying to convince him to turn against humanity because he'll outlive everything he loves. And it's like, what will you have in 500 years? Well, it's 500 years later. The last page is 500 years later. He has a wife. He has a daughter. A son. He's spread peace and happiness throughout the universe. That's what he has in 500 years. And it's magnificent. There's not one goddamn thing wrong with Invincible. Not one goddamn thing. Invincible Compendium 3, though I wish... Okay, Invincible Compendium 3 is an amazing end to an amazing book. 144 issues of pure platinum. Incredible. The tie-ins were great too, because I believe they were all written by Kirkman as well. The whole world. I think Guardians of the Globe, Tech Jacket, Wolfman, all those spin-offs were also written by Kirkman. So it's all the same stuff. Lighthearted, but can get dark at a moment's notice. It's like fucking Mulan up in here. Just, boom, tones changed. What you gonna do about it? Just, wow, absolutely wow. This is the best comic I've ever read. The best book series I've ever read. And possibly just the best thing I have ever read in my entire life. Invincible is just that. Invincible. Because nothing can beat it. Holy shit. The best thing I've ever read. And then there is a part of me that's like, I really wish that whole rape scene and subplot weren't in there, but they handled it in such a responsible way, or as responsible as you possibly could, I suppose. They handled it in a responsible way. They handle it without toxic masculinity. In fact, Mark isn't toxically masculine really at all. He's a wonderful man. Oh my god, I loved watching him grow up. This is a perfect book. I don't care how you read Invincible as long as it's legal. Get it from your local comic shop, bookstore, Amazon, Kindle, which is still technically Amazon. Read it however you can, but please support it. Definitely put money towards it. Even if it's just used ones on eBay, that's still putting money into the economy. Maybe not directly into Image Comics' pocket or Kirkman's pocket, but still. You know? Just do it how you can afford it. Because I read the compendiums. They were each like $65, and that's physical, and the physical versions fall apart, so I got the digital ones. I wanted the compendiums because, one, I could get all of it a lot faster and a lot cheaper with the compendiums because the volumes and the issues, those add up. Plus, the compendiums have all of the tie-ins. They don't have the spin-offs. The spin-offs you'll have to get the separate trades or single issues for, which I'm going to do. I think I'm going to get the physical books for those, actually, to kind of make up for doing the digital here. I know I'm getting physical Guardians of the Globe. For sure. At least. Probably a physical Wolfman, because, you know, I like my monster comics more physical. Especially because monsters are my big thing, really. Even though I've been doing a lot of superhero videos recently, both for action figure and comic book stuff, I'll admit. But that's it. Just read Invincible. Read Invincible. It is a perfect book. I straight up can't think of one bad thing to say in over 144 issues. I can't think of a single fucking bad thing to say. Do you know how incredible that is? Do you know how insane that is? I'm very critical of things like this. I always have something bad to say. But Compendiums 1 through 3, the whole run, it's perfect. Kirkman, Image, fucking thank you. This is why I've been trying to read more creator-owned titles. Because a corporate comic book publisher, DC or Marvel never would have let this book happen. DC or Marvel never would have let these stories happen. They just wouldn't have. They just absolutely would not have. And that's that. And DC and Marvel would have made them bring every single person they killed back to life and blah, blah, blah. Like, people stay dead in this book. Not always. Not always. But usually if someone doesn't stay dead in this book, you know almost immediately that they don't stay dead, even if the other characters don't know that they aren't staying dead. If someone's not staying dead in this book, you know it immediately. It's not like Death of Superman, where you wait forever, or the death of... Okay, Barry Allen stayed dead for 20 years. I think I can give that one a pass, actually. Barry Allen stayed dead for 20 years. So... I think he gets a pass. I think they meant for him to just be dead. So I'm gonna give him a break, but Superman came back very quickly. But yeah, you as the reader know, but the universe as a whole doesn't know, so it still has the same impact story-wise. It's very interesting. And a perfectly done book. Perfectly done. Yes, I know this video was over 45 minutes, and guess what, motherfuckers? It was worth it, and it was necessary. You had to know that Invincible was perfect. But that's it. I'm sure you're sick of hearing me say Invincible is perfect over and over and over again. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And remember, if you want to see some of the best story, some of the best character progression and development you've ever seen, check out Invincible. It's hopeful and inspiring, but also grounded and realistic at the same time, which is hard to do. Ask literally anyone ever. That's it. Thank you all once again. See y'all next time.